When the bomb became our God, we loved it far too much, worshiping no other gods before it. When the bomb became our God, we lived in a constant state of fear that we called peace. Where else would the victims go but first into the air, then into the water, then into the grasses, and eventually into our food? What does that mean? It means that we breathe our victims, that we drink them and eat them without tasting the bitterness in our daily meals. We are mighty. We take what we want when we want, believing there is no accounting. Don't look into the mirror. You may be frightened by the raw redness of your jingoism. You may find a flag tattooed on your forehead or on your chest. A poem by David Krieger, President Emeritus of the Nuclear Age Peace Foundation.
Thank you, Vicki, for that poem. I want to welcome you and bring greetings from the board of North Carolina Peace Action. We've come together to celebrate Peacemakers Debbie and Dave Bezak, and we celebrate peacemaking. We all have a desire for justice and a more peaceful world. So when we come together by Zoom or in person social gatherings, we uphold each other and give each other hope. Peace Action began in 1957 as the organization SANE. By then, there were enough nuclear weapons in the world to destroy the world. Norman Cousins, of the editor of the Saturday Review, and Clarence Pickett of the American Friends Service Committee, put an ad in the New York Times signed by 48 well-known Americans to begin this organization. And they called for an immediate suspension of nuclear testing by all nations and for the start of nuclear arms control agreements. SANE and Norman Cousins active in arms control negotiations. And in the years after that, the US, British, and Soviet officials signed the Partial Test Ban Treaty in 1963, and the SALT and START treaties followed in later years. Well, nuclear weapons control is something that Peace Action continues to work on. And right now, US relations with Russia may be at an all-time low. Certainly not much different from then what it was in the Cold War days. But but the United Nations Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons is a hopeful development. It has been signed by 86 nations and ratified by 69. This is an international law and is now being something that is being worked on worldwide. U.S. public support for the treaty is something the Peace Action is currently working on, and we in North Carolina Peace Action are doing that as well. So again, I welcome you all and thank you for your continued support. You're muted, George.
Okay. Apologies, and thanks for letting me know, Joe. It's great to be here with everybody today. I miss being in person. I miss Mia and Joe's ice cream as much as I miss y'all, just being honest. But it's my honor and pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker for today. My good friend, George Martin from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, who is a longtime peace action leader nationally and an amazing human being, is struggling with health issues and has been hospitalized for like the third time in a month or more. So we'll send him good thoughts and prayers. And a young man, I call this person a young man because when I met this individual, when I met Wesley Morris, I think he was probably in his 20s, and I felt much younger then too. But I'm honored because these days, especially with what's going on in the world, scary, ominous clouds of nuclear threats and such hostility, even among people here in the US. It just doesn't make sense. And it's hard to remember how important those words are in that opening song we got to hear. You got to work for peace because peace ain't coming this way, and peace is not coming easy. So, as someone who's worked for peace most of her life and all of my adult life since college, I look for places and sparks to keep that flame going and keep me energized. One of those sparks is Wesley Morris. And I hope I can call him the right reverend now, since he went to divinity school and stuff, but I'm not quite sure. But I'm going to turn it over to Wesley to give us our talk today, to get us started.
On board here.
Thank you so much, Wesley.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. I hope that I'm coming through loud and clear. I also see I have some light bulbs around me that you might see as well. We'll just add that to a little bit of our conversation. Thank you, George, and thank you, Peace Action. I was really grateful when you reached out, because the opportunity to explore the ideals and the meaning of peace at such a time like this across difference, that's the work that I think is most pressing for all of us to engage in. And George, yes, I was in my 20s when we met, and I've scaled up the mountains to my 30s. And so I am very glad that you thought of me and that you made the opportunity available. I also just want to give thanks because I am a senior pastor of Faith Community Church, which hosts the Beloved Community Center, which is one of my forever homes, with Reverend Nelson Johnson and Miss Joyce Johnson, who have been doing critical work for decades around the North Carolina Justice, Truth, and Reconciliation Commission and the local commission that was in Greensboro, North Carolina. And so much of what I'll share today comes from what I learned there and actually here in Greensboro. And if my voice can hold out, I will do the best I can. I preached earlier today a message, and we had a wonderful time in our service. But again, thank you for this opportunity just to share a few things. I want to start by saying that I'm rooted and kind of matured in spirituality. And that's how I came to understand peacemaking in the world. I remember very early on being raised in a home where the word fair got used a lot, particularly me being the youngest of four. I would often shout, "That's not fair," and try to get my way and try to get some recognition. But I began to grow into, what does this word mean? It got into equity, it got into equality, it got into justice. But it started with that very elementary understanding of something not being right and saying that that's not fair. When it comes to peacemaking, peacemaking largely to me is about what and how we hear. Oftentimes it is considered the voice that causes peace to happen and not so much the hearing of others. But I want to also just continue to anchor that point in saying how we hear the world is fundamental in what we do with the world that we've been given. And in this day and time, I know as a chaplain, as well as a part of my history, that if I can hear deeply, there is healing there. There's actually peacemaking in the internality of others when there is conflict around, when there is chaos or when there is disturbance. One of the most primary needs is to be heard. And I also believe this about us as a human species, that to be seen and to be heard is one of our highest heights and deepest depths. And to appreciate each other across difference means that we can really do some work in this area. I'm reminded of a proverb that I was grown into called the Beatitude. Some of you might know it. The old classic, blessed are you, and one of those blessed are you statements is blessed are the peacemakers. And I'm so glad that there's other translations of the Holy Scriptures now. And this one in particular says, you are blessed when you can show people how to cooperate instead of competing or fighting. Now, that is a simple way to say that this world seems and to show up in much more complex ways than just saying, let's work together. It's going to be all right. Especially when we are talking about the threats of war, violence, and terrorism. Now, some of these words are already provoking me a response. Some images come up, some dates of history come up, some of my own life experiences come up when I hear those words. But on a day where you are acknowledging and seeking out who is working for peace, I think it is important to understand the blessing of hearing on today. So again, I'll start by just sharing with you one story. I have the opportunity to work with folks who have experienced great forms of trauma and hurt. And as a chaplain in New York City, Harlem Hospital, I remember my first day. I walked down to the ward on the bottom floor, and there's a door with a glass window. I looked through the glass window and peered through it, and it seemed to me like a lot of chaos happening. It was the unit where folks where they get the entry point when they have mental disturbance or mental health issues or crisis. And I saw that I did not fit. I said, I don't know if I could be helpful in this situation. And so I didn't even raise my badge to be let in. I actually went back up to the office where the chaplains normally gathered. And when I got there, I sat back down in my seat and questioned my own route to the seminary and say, am I built for this? And by the end of my time at Harlem Hospital, I actually found myself returning to the place that caused me the most amount of fear. And actually, in the time that I had that was extra, I spent more time there than I did in other places of comfort. What that lesson taught me was that, yes, I'm a community organizer and I'm working on issues of labor. Yes, I'm working on homeless hospitality in the city of Greensboro and understanding that the housing crisis doesn't just happen, but that there are economic engines that are driving this. Yes, I began to work for peace treaties among street organizations who were once rivals and fighting each other. But at the same time, I understand that there are drivers of lack in a world full of plenty. And so, coming with this framing of the Beloved Community Center, I said, what can I do? Yes, I'm going into these areas that once caused me fear. Yes, I'm speaking a hopeful vision of us working together and seeing a world without war, without terrorism. But how do we bring this into being? How do I grow my capacity for non-peace? How do I grow my capacity for areas that also cause not only myself, but my community danger? Well, one of the things I did was sit still for a moment, listen to the stories, listen to the people, listen to the things that I want to judge very quickly and say, I don't like that too much. That's not fair. Before I say that's not fair and put people in categories of right and wrong, or put people in categories that make it safe for me to approach them, I might need to disturb my own sense of peace, my own sense of comfort. And so on a day like this, where folks are being acknowledged for the sacrifices that they've made in the name of truth and justice and peace, I want to join with you all in saying, I am here to hear the world anew. Yeah, I know that there is much more experience than me. And I often look at rooms and sometimes I say, folks are double my age. And that is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful room to be in, because you can pour into me and I can share a little bit of a perspective from mine. And so in this spirit, I'm praying that we can move forward in a spirit that brings not only the little Wesley that was a little bit nervous as a child and screamed out, "That's not fair," trying to break the tension and solve the problem that I saw in front of me. And then one that got a little bit older and saw a chaplain's door as a safety refuge of not having to engage the things that cause me fear. And then now me speaking to you, pleading with you to hear across the wide gap of difference, is that we might hear anew the things that trouble us, and that they will be not a terror to the communities that we serve, but will transform into being a part of the communities in which we serve. This is very hard for me to even talk about because I am on the edge of my own understanding. And anytime I get to the edge of my own understanding, I ask for help to go above my threshold. This threshold has caused me anxiety. It's caused me sadness. It's caused me some retreat. It's caused me the pain of knowing that there are limits to even my own understanding of peacemaking. And so whatever you might understand or see your limit of peacemaking as, I would say, let's draw together all these voices and parts of this community. And in the words of Henry Nouwen, wounded healer, those that even might come to the table with wounds of non-peace themselves are able to hear their own stories through a lens of love that causes us into action. And so just as we say, it's very hard to move towards reconciliation without a measure of justice. I would say it is very hard to speak so boldly unless I resonated with what I need to hear. So again, in a world where we're able to select narrow lanes of hearing through our social media channels, we're able to click on an X and say, I don't want to hear any more of that. Or when we're able to choose the TV channels and our favorite selections are chosen for us on our streaming services, they say, you like that last one, I think you'll like more of this. We are challenged to really listen deeply to the parts of this world that are most troubling. I'm able to name this with some level of confidence that does not come from me, but comes from one who told us and reminded me in my faith journey that I am blessed when I see that people are saying there is peace, but it is not a peace for everyone. When I'm able to be alive at this moment, and when I acknowledge and say, there is people saying it's actually okay for us to be in this much tension in this nation. It's actually okay. Everything's fine. The voter suppression, that's okay. That's actually a rallying cry, as if this is the norm. And as if we come to another 10 years from now, and that people are going to say, oh, now that we're able to suppress them, now we're okay. Now we're at a level of peace. And I actually follow the teachings of one who looked over a city that was going about their customs and wept. I remember in lineup at church, they used to say your favorite scripture. And someone would say, Jesus wept, just because it was the shortest one. But now I have to acknowledge that there was another time where there was weeping. When he looked over the city and people going about their custom, going about their days, says, I weep for this city. And I can join a chorus that say, I might weep for this state, because I don't know if we truly know what makes for peace. But I know in this gathering that there are folks who have reached limits in their past. And I want to invite you to bring those limits that you have been to in your own past and ones that you have overcome, and celebrate and give thanks for your journey. I want to thank you for not stopping at a peace that was okay for you. Thank you for not stopping at a peace that was okay for your family. Thank you for not stopping at a peace that was okay for your county or even your city or your community center or your neighborhood. Thank you for pushing for a peace that goes much further down the line. As we go further down the line, I want to invite you all just to do one piece with me that we do at our church, and I'll be out your way. It is this, and now this is just a request, but if you will just extend your arms in front of yourself, right where you are. This is a gift given to me by my mother. Extending them out, She used to make me hold it until the tips of my fingers vibrated and they started feeling a little numb and fuzzy. We won't hold it that long today. But the hope is that as you extend your arms, reaching past the limits that you might feel, you're able to extend further out, just one more reach, and to bring it back in and give yourself a hug. A lot of my friends, they still joke with me. They say, "You still do that?" I said, "Yes, I do," because I still think it's important to love who I was created to be, and that I'm able to listen deeply to who someone else was created to be. And when those start coming together, it might take a while. It might be beyond the time that I go, but we are able to celebrate one another in that way. Ashe.
Patrick?
Well, I'm Mary Ryder, and this is Patrick O'Neill. And we are here to introduce our friends Dave and Debbie. We're honored and we're delighted to be introducing Debbie Bezek as the North Carolina Peace Action's Peacemakers of the Year. Very few people are as deserving of this honor as the Bezeks, who have made peacemaking a central component of their life together. Patrick and I have fond memories of the day back in 1988 when we first met Debbie and Dave as newlyweds, not too far removed from their days at Purdue University in West Lafayette, Indiana, where they met. We were both happy to meet them, and I think they might have been intrigued and amused to discover that our newborn baby we had with us didn't have a name yet. Later on, we named her Bernadette. So Dave and Debbie were looking to connect their faith with peace issues and social justice issues. And Father Charlie Mulholland was having a Pax Christi conference at St. Michael's in Cary. And that's where we first ran into them. Charlie, many of you may have known Father Charlie. He sure had a good way of bringing good people together. So thus began our adventures with the Bezeks. Dave and Debbie soon began to join us for regular meetings of Caritas, a peace and justice group that we started in Chapel Hill, but we did way more than get together for meetings. In 1991, when Sister Kitty Bethea, Patrick, Bernadette, and I opened the Catholic Worker House in Garner, Dave and Debbie were the first ones there to welcome us. And not only to welcome us, but to work side by side in practicing the works of mercy, feeding the hungry in downtown Raleigh, housing those in need, working to solve the problems of hunger and homelessness. I don't know if you can see my shirt, but seeking justice, loving mercy, and walking humbly with our Creator. So we have slept in the Moore Square parking garage with the Bezeks and homeless folks to illustrate the plight of homelessness in Raleigh. We've fed countless hungry people Saturday after Saturday, year after year, decade after decade with the Bezeks in downtown Raleigh. We've marched for racial equality with them. We've marched to end the death penalty. We've marched for justice for the least of these in our society. In all kinds of ways, we have sought to bring an end to the arms race, which you know, as well as I, threatens our entire planet. I remember on several occasions when our children were quite young, we went down into Raleigh downtown in the wee hours of the morning to spray silhouette shadows on the ground, on the walls, on the street. These shadows reminded us of the bombings and were there to commemorate the bombings and the slaughter of people in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Japan in August of 1945. So we left our shadows, the Bezeks and we and others left our shadows there for not only us to commemorate and remember the slaughter, but for anyone who walked by to be knowledgeable of that. There's so much more to all that Dave and Debbie have done since they came to North Carolina in 1988.
Immediately, Dave and Debbie became our closest friends, being with us every step of the way, whether it was giving us their used cars, sending us a monthly donation, or lending a hand in any way they could. Dave and Debbie were always there to support the Catholic worker, our guests, and the work of peacemaking, hospitality, and resistance. And Debbie, Mary, and I also had a partner in crime as we crossed lines together, trespassed, and said no to killing in its various forms. Central Prison, the Johnston County Airport's torture taxis, the General Assembly, and the racist anti-immigrant policies by Alamance County Sheriff Terry Johnson. I was always proud to be handcuffed alongside Debbie and share a jail cell with her. For more than 34 years, Dave and Debbie have been at the forefront of North Carolina's peace and justice movement. Informed by their deep commitment to the Catholic worker movement and its founders, Dorothy Day and Peter Morin, the BSECs have been in the trenches in the efforts to abolish war, torture, the death penalty, poverty, racism, and so much more. Debbie has risked arrest numerous times for acts of nonviolent direct action. Dave always bails her out. And as a team, these parents of three radical daughters, Ellen, Laura, and Valerie, have always said yes when asked to do the hard work of organizing. Debbie is the financial liaison for many peace and justice groups, and Dave as the computer and idea whiz. With a degree of humility that is a model for all of us, Debbie and Dave have lent their steady hands and sharp minds to the work of peace and justice, never seeking personal gratification. Clearly, all of our lives have been enriched by the love and devotion Debbie and Dave bring to the peace movement. Among the organizations they have supported, the North Carolina Peace Booth at the State Fair, North Carolina Stop Torture Now, North Carolina Peace Action, the Father Charlie Mulholland Catholic Worker House, People of Faith Against the Death Penalty, the Farm Labor Organizing Committee Union, the Moral Monday Movement, Oak City Cares, Witness for Peace Southeast, and the annual Pilgrimage for Peace and Justice, and countless efforts to defend immigrants, prisoners, victims of violence and war, the homeless, and all those Jesus calls the least of these. As Bill Finlater would have said if he were here today, we are collectively blessed to have Dave and Debbie Bezak on our team.
We are the godparents of each other's children. Our 8 children and Dave and Debbie and their 3 daughters have all been close friends for more than 30 years. Well, at least those who are 30. Once when I was in jail for a few weeks, Debbie took over preparing our daughter Veronica to start middle school without her mother nearby. But Debbie and Dave are second parents to our children, so Veronica was well prepared. I'd like to share some comments now from Dave and Debbie's daughters. My goddaughter, Valerie, and the youngest Bezak daughter is a law student at the University of Oregon. And here's what she said. First and foremost, I'm happy to see my parents recognized for their advocacy in North Carolina. In the decades they have been a part of the North Carolina social justice community, they have been fierce advocates, patient teachers, and compassionate allies, all while raising 3 daughters to see the potential of the world around them, not just the problems of the present. I am so proud of my parents, not just for this award, but for their kindness, integrity, generosity, and perhaps most of all, their dedication in everything they do. They truly pass along their best characteristics to everyone who gets to know them. I could not have asked for better role models in my life to teach me how to stand up and show up when it matters most. I'm registered for the event. I can't wait to celebrate Mom and Dad. Laura, the middle child, is a physical therapist. She's married to Michael Goodling, and they're expecting their first child, Parker David Goodling, any minute now. Dave and Debbie's first grandchild. And here's what Laura said. Throughout my life, my parents have always demonstrated authenticity and commitment to their beliefs. They have given their time, energy, and resources including many hours of their children's lives, to spreading the word of peace, love, and justice for all. I am so grateful to have seen firsthand their commitment to service and their selfless pursuit of peace, as it has given me the framework to be a more compassionate and loving person. For this, I am proud to be able to call them mom and dad.
And their eldest daughter, Ellen, a marine scientist living in Tidewater, Virginia. My parents were absolutely the biggest influence on my worldview and who I am today. They brought us girls up not to be echo boxes for their own views, but instead instilled in us compassion, humility, and critical thinking skills so that we could tell right from wrong and form our own ideas and opinions. I know they've had an influence on many others in the community over the years as well, and I feel so lucky that they are my parents. An important note, tomorrow is Halloween and Debbie's birthday. The Ryder O'Neills have amazing memories of Debbie's great birthday parties over the years, complete with Debbie's gourmet cooking and great trick-or-treating in their Fuquay-Varina neighborhood. And for all of us, the Torres family, who joined the Catholic Worker in 1992, have been as close as blood to the Bizaks and Ryder O'Neills. Thanks to the Torreses, we have been blessed to have immersed ourselves in Mexican culture and the beauty of this wonderful family who came to us fleeing poverty in Mexico. Alicia, the mother, Erica and Sal, Nora and Michael, Omar, Freddie and Melissa, and Alicia's 10 grandchildren have also become intimate members of our larger Catholic Worker family. The blessings keep growing. So happy birthday, Debbie, and congratulations to Dave and Debbie. We love you.
All right. I'm interrupting, and forgive me for interrupting, but we were intended to have our grannies sing for us before Dave and Debbie speak. So Dave and Debbie, you've got a few more minutes to get your speech tight while we hear from the grannies. Thank you.
Okay. Good afternoon. We grannies are happy to be here once again at the Peacemaker Award event, and congratulations to Dave and Debbie Bizak. I feel like I learned a lot about them that I did not know. That was a great story. This song was written and updated by Vicki, and it'll be sung by Vicki, myself, Jade, Chris, and Karen if she makes it.
I'm
Okay.
here. I'm here.
Oh, good. All
Okay.
right. Yay. Okay, I'll let Vicki start us off.
Follow the money to see why we go off to war. Follow the money, it's not freedom we're fighting for. Follow the money, it leads to those corporate whores. They're threatening nuclear war now, so the munition makers can get more.
Oh, no.
Boeing, Northrop Grumman, Lockheed Martin, and Raytheon too. Reap all the profits and don't give a fig about you. Destroying our planet, their profits are simply obscene, while they're at home counting their money to support their war machine.
Follow the money. Is it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay,
good.
sorry. Sorry. Follow the money. It all leads to corporate greed. The poor and the homeless, when will they get what they need? Big money interests dictate our nation's war plans. They're selling weapons to fascist regimes now. So it's time that we all take a stand.
Nuclear warfare now threatens us all once again. It's nuclear madness, and we all know how that could end. That's not the future that we want for our grandkids or yours. And that's why we grannies will keep raging until we put an end to war.
Congress must hear us and give us the help that we need. To hell with those fat cats who suffer from terminal greed. We've got to stop them and all those who profit from war. Yes, we will follow the money. Let's buy peace instead of war.
Oh, gosh, thanks, everybody. Thank you, Mary and Patrick, for that wonderful introduction. And I'm really grateful for the interlude from the grannies because they gave us a chance to compose ourselves a little bit after hearing those messages from Mary and Patrick and from our daughters. It was very touching. 16 years ago, our roles were reversed a little bit, and it was our daughter Ellen and I that introduced Mary and Patrick when they received that North Carolina Peace Action Peacemaker Award in 2006. As Mary mentioned, all of our daughters have known Mary and Patrick for their entire lives. At the time, I closed that introduction by saying that Mary and Patrick were not only peacemakers, they were, and they continue to be, peacemaker makers. They turn others into peacemakers. And it was our meeting 34 years ago that brought us into this community and eventually led to this honor.
So Mary mentioned that we came to the Triangle in 1988 and came under the tutelage of Father Charlie Mulholland, and Wesley's words about hearing hear the world anew really resonated with me, because that's what happened when we heard Father Charlie preaching. Is he showed us there's another way that the world should be, that love your enemy isn't just a nice idea, that the cries for justice can be answered. So we soon joined Pax Christi, which is where we met Mary and Patrick, and a room full of people who had been educated about the issues of the day. And I know so many of you were there for all that stuff that was going on in the 80s. Nuclear weapons, US destabilization of governments in Latin America, the rapidly escalating military budgets that rob the poor, and callous policies that hurt the marginalized. And then the other thing we learned is there was a way to resist all of this. This was kind of new to us, that you could resist this injustice nonviolently and creatively. And so this is where, again, we met Mary and Patrick and began our lifelong friendship with them. And through them, our lifelong relationship with the Triangle Peace and Justice community, who are a group of people that we just love so much, who are deeply knowledgeable about the issues of the day, who hear the cries for justice and lead with love.
There's a recurring thought that I've had over the years when we've attended actions and protests. We'd be in front of the Armory or Seymour Johnson Air Force Base or the General Assembly or some county courthouse somewhere in North Carolina. And I look around me and I'd see people like W.W. Finlater or Frank and Marguerite Coyle or Dean and Sandy Irving or Joe and Linda Burton or Cy and Carolyn King or Judy and Leo Okedi-Clore. And I look at them and I could see the love of justice in their eyes. And I could see their love of humanity in their hearts. And I always knew I was in the right place because they were there. And I never doubted we were on the right side of history. As Patrick mentioned, Debbie did some civil disobedience in Alamance County. During the trial, Sandy Irving was sitting near me in the gallery, and she just was the epitome of Southern gentility and charm. But she had a fiery belief that a wrong was going on with the 287G program there, and she was going to do something about it. And I saw that, and that's kind of why I show up. There's a lot of hatred in this world, and we pray for the people who don't know how to shed that hate. But I'm really grateful to have so many loving examples all around us to look up to and to strive and to follow and to share that journey with.
Over the years, we've painted shadows of nuclear bomb victims on the sidewalks. We've been part of skits, die-ins, pilgrimages. We've marched, vigiled, and committed civil disobedience. But I think most people these days associate us with the Peace Booth. We started working shifts at the Peace Booth back maybe 1992, maybe a little earlier than that. But it was a couple of years later that Father Charlie was looking for someone to take over handling the money for the booth. And I volunteered under the condition that I would not have to go to any of the meetings. But I decided to go to one meeting to introduce myself to those who didn't know me. And I've been there ever since. And several years after that, I recruited Dave to do all the computer work for the Peace Booth. He said, okay, but I'm not coming to any of the meetings. But of course, he's coming to the meetings. The Peace Booth has tackled issues of war, gun violence, immigration, the environment, torture, voting rights, the death penalty, policing, and the needs of veterans. Over the years, volunteers have talked to tens of thousands of fairgoers. We don't know what effect our presence or our words had on these people, just as we often don't know what the effect our vigils, marches, and civil disobedience will be. But we have faith. Faith that if we follow Martin Luther King's long arc of the moral universe, we will see the bend toward justice.
Yeah. We do have a show and tell item. You can see behind us, we've got a blanket. So, one of the unexpected benefits of all this activism is the number of t-shirts that you acquire over the years. Some groups even asked me to help design their t-shirts, and you can see some of them behind us. So when we couldn't close our drawers anymore, we took the shirts and then had them made into a quilt. So we can share that with you a little bit. So we've just collected a bunch of shirts over the years.